international concern in Congo. The U.S. has this week condemned worsening violence there and called on M23, a rebel military group made up of mostly ethnic Tutsis, to cease hostilities immediately. Ongoing skirmishes between M23 and Congolese government forces has caused thousands of civilians to flee toward the eastern city of Goma. Refugees have criticized Western nations for not doing enough to curb bloodshed in the region. The U.S. and the UN, meanwhile, blame neighboring Rwanda for supporting M23 in a bid to control the Democratic Republic of Congo's mineral resources.
Tontine Dazimwa Judah was forced to flee from her home when it was attacked by M23 rebels. She had to act quickly to save her 3 children.
My brother was killed during the attack. He died. The bombs fell on our houses, and they destroyed them completely.
In the chaos, she lost sight of her husband. She doesn't know where he is, or even if he's still alive. But there's no time to grieve for her dead brother or worry about the rest of her missing family.
Since we arrived here, we've had little food, and the children are sick.
Clashes between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels have escalated in the towns and villages around the provincial capital Goma since the beginning of the year. And as the rebels seize more and more territory, people trying to escape the fighting have been forced to seek refuge in informal camps around Goma. According to the NGO Doctors Without Borders, more than 100,000 people live here in the Bulengo camp alone. But the rebels are approaching.
Artillery has now reached the borders and even inside the camp. The camp's become a heavily militarized zone now. That causes a lot of concern for the population and threatens humanitarian access.
Nearby Goma, a city of 2 million people, is now largely cut off by road, making it difficult for aid agencies to reach people. And the rebels could seize Goma next. At the camp itself, the conditions are worsening. It is the people, many of whom have been displaced multiple times due to rebel attacks, who are paying the price.
The sites they're on are absolutely filthy and overcrowded. People live in a very terrible situation right now. They're exposed to multiple risks, especially sexual violence.
There are more than 100 armed groups roaming eastern Congo. Many of them are taking advantage of the situation, targeting vulnerable women like Tontine.
When we go to the forest to look for firewood to sell, sometimes they hurt us. They rape us. That's how we have to live here.
Back home, she was able to take care of herself and her family. She used to work as a vendor. Now, her only hope is that help, any kind, will arrive soon.
And Christoph Vogel is a conflict researcher and Congo expert at Political Geography Unit University of Ghent in Belgium. So tell us a little bit more about M23, and is it the only rebel group involved in this civil war?
Thank you. So, the M23 is certainly one of the most well-known armed groups that operate in Eastern Congo. It's got a long tradition, historically based on other rebel groups that have been operating throughout the past 30 years, many of whom that have been accused to be backed by neighboring Rwanda and other countries east of the DRC. But it's by far not the only armed group in the region, as we've heard. Also in the report from Goma, there's over 100 rebel groups that can be counted in the sort of the current phase of the conflict in the region. some of whom are more deadly than the M23, although the M23 has certainly been sort of the politically most important armed group given the conflict dynamics that it has been provoking. But it should not be forgotten that there is also in the very area that M23 is fighting, there is also other armed groups fighting against M23 and also committing human rights abuses and other violence.
So tell us a little bit more about that, because many players have been pulled in to tackle rebels. Why is that, first of all, and how has this made it so hard to bring peace to the region?
So what we've been seeing since around October 2021, when the M23 restarted its rebel campaign after being dormant for many years, is sort of a conflagration of conflict with a lot of both local Congolese actors as well as regional international actors being drawn in. So we've been seeing private military companies being subcontracted for the conflict as much as other armed groups. There is a UN peacekeeping mission. There is different regional forces that have been replacing one another. And then there is also UN reports accusing Rwanda of fighting alongside M23, as much as different armed groups, including the FDLR, which is somewhat the heir of what used to be the Rwandan genocidal forces in 1994, accused of fighting alongside the Congolese army. So there is a huge conundrum and a multiplicity of different actors fighting one another, engaging in alliances and coalition that makes this particular period of the conflict very intractable.
Thank you so much, Congo expert Christoph Vogel, for joining us to share that experience.